which, of course, Stardust Racers, we talked about the incident where Kevin Rodriguez Zavala tragically died while on it. We've learned since then there's a lot of things that have gone into this in terms of there's still an active investigation going on. I imagine that is going to wrap up, I would assume, very shortly, given that Universal has reopened Stardust Racers.
As of Saturday.
It reopened in the afternoon sometime. So on Friday, Karen Irwin sent a letter to team members for Universal basically stating that they're devastated by this, but they've actually had 4 different groups look at the ride. They had the state inspectors, they had Universal's people, they had Mack Rides look at it, and they also had a third-party independent group come look at this. They all came away basically saying the same thing, that nothing malfunctioned on the ride. And then, we learned since then that the victim here he did have a spinal cord injury previously, so he was paralyzed getting on it. I think what's going to come away from this is that is basically going to be the determining factor of what happened here, given that upon opening Stardust Racers back up, there is no changes to the ride. There are some new guidelines, but they didn't add any different restraints. They didn't add any trim brakes that we're aware of to the ride. It's reopening as it was before. Essentially. And the victim's family has hired an attorney, Ben Crump, who has made a lot of allegations at Universal, holding weekly press conferences, basically calling into question at this point. In his previous statement after the reopening of Stardust Racers, he had a very, I guess I could just say poignant response to it.
And I will say he is the lawyer representing the family, so not everything he says is factual.
Right. Well, yeah.
But some people hear it and some people think, oh my gosh, like this stuff that he's saying, is that true? Well, he's a lawyer. So you can't take everything a lawyer says.
He's also a very, we'll just say, controversial lawyer in terms of his tactics. There's a lot of things that will be said about him. I don't know a lot about him personally. I've learned more about it in the past couple of weeks. He has given 2 press conferences where he essentially is saying that Universal Studios are running unsafe attractions. He's even made claims that the team members did not respond quick enough whenever this incident happened. All sorts of stuff, saying a team member helped him onto the ride, which I don't believe for a second has happened. Talking with other team members, that is basically, you will be fired on the spot if you do that, for a lot of different reasons. And I've been told some information that if it is true, which I'm not going to talk about because I can't verify it, but if it is true, and if it went to a trial, it would not look good on Ben Crump. I'll put it that way. If it got that far. I don't know if it'll get that far. I kind of think he's trying to get a settlement out of all this.
Yeah.
But like I said, Universal announced they're reopening the ride with updated guidelines, which we'll talk about shortly. So Ben Crump's response as of yesterday, he said, quote, "Stardust Racers is evidence in an active death investigation. Reopening the ride before our experts can examine every component is unadulterated spoliation of evidence, a grave risk to public safety, and puts profit over people's lives. Universal reportedly told employees the ride functioned as intended, as did the investigators. Universal made that statement, and the investigators agreed with Universal." So I think that's pretty key there. If that is accurate, then the design itself is deadly. So basically, he's saying that the ride created by Universal and Mack Rides is basically just an unsafe attraction. We are demanding that Universal pause the reopening, preserve all evidence, and allow our experts to inspect it. If they refuse, we will address Universal's callous actions in court, said attorney Ben Crump. And his family also made a statement basically saying that reopening it was disrespectful to Kevin Rodriguez Zavala and all sorts of things. So they're not happy that it's reopening. But the fact that it's reopening the investigation is not yet completed, which some people I think that kind of raise some eyebrows. But I don't think there's any way that Universal reopened this attraction if they had any sort of inclination that something was wrong with this ride in terms of not passing inspections or whatever the code is for this. So Ben Crump saying, well, we're going to take this to court then. I think they were going to try and do this regardless. Yeah. This is just going to be their thing they're going to really stick to. But yeah. Do you have any thoughts about all of this has transpired, the back and forth here and everything that's gone on?
Well, as we said a couple weeks ago when we talked about this the first time, like this is obviously a very awful thing that has happened to this person. And, obviously we feel for the family and going through this, and that's got to be like the hardest thing ever.
It's got to be. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Absolutely.
It'd be terrible.
Absolutely. It's terrible. There's a lot of things we still don't know because the investigation hasn't been, concluded. It hasn't been released, like what information they have. I don't know when we'll ever hear that. I do think there's some questions about exactly what happened prior to getting on the ride. Should he have been on the ride in the first place? How his injuries actually occurred? There's a lot of questions around that. And I guess public opinion at this point, I think most of the people are thinking like, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I guess I'm going to assume that a lot of people are thinking like, it's possible that this person didn't have the correct ability or capabilities to be able to handle the intensity of this ride. And I don't know for sure. But based on what we know about his disability, it kind of leans that way. I don't know. Like, do you think that's plays? I mean,
yes,
it seems to play a huge part in why he was injured in the first place.
Well,
but we don't know for sure. It just points that way.
Well, there's some things that indicate that in terms of Universal's updated language as well.
Yeah,
you've had thousands of people have ridden this ride, and you haven't had this outcome with that. And there have been a couple of people that have been injured, as do happen on many roller coasters. There's injury reports constantly at Disney and Universal and other ones of people experiencing whatever the injuries are on different types of coasters. So it does happen. Typically, I'd say the majority of the time, it is due to pre-existing conditions, which is noted if that is the case whenever these things happen. But I think when you're talking about this, I have a background in personal training, sports, physiology. You're dealing with somebody, they're paralyzed, and Universal's language is going to show this in their updated stuff, that you do have atrophy of muscles, you have weaker muscles, you have weaker bone density, and part of the restrictions on this ride are basically, we're warning, if you have back injuries, neck injuries, if you cannot maintain an upright position, that this attraction is not for you. And basically, he didn't heed those warnings, and I think it was a situation where he was unable to do what he needed to do in terms of keeping yourself upright, bracing yourself in various ways, which led to this. And again, it's incredibly sad. I'm not trying to make light of what happened here, but I think when you're looking at this from a standpoint of the fault here, I don't think Universal has they did, and even have more now, had plenty of warnings about this ride, about different physical conditions. And, he wrote it, and this is what led to it. And I think that's what the investigation is going to show, because the updated language that Universal has placed now kind of give us, I believe, an indication of what the final investigation is going to show. Because, again, they're not going to reopen this if there's any chance,
right?
At least as it is, that the ride was the fault or there's something wrong with this ride.
Right.